Hello, welcome. This is Anime Zone. Today I will be talking about Death Parade. This will be a review and it's a spoiler-filled one. So if you haven't watched it, don't watch this video. Go watch it and then come back and watch this. I definitely think Death Parade is worth your time. And if you just want to know how I rate it, well, I would say it's B plus to A minus. The reason I do spoiler-filled reviews is because if I'm gonna spend a whole day working on a video, I want to convey all my feelings and thoughts, and most of the times that means talking about, spoilers. That won't always be the case, but most of the times. But regardless, with that out of the way, let's go to story and talk about that. So, Death Parade is a Madhouse original series, and the story follows an arbiter Decum and his assistant as they host games in the Quindecum bar to judge whether the souls will be reincarnated or will be sent to the void. Now, I really like the structure of this story because the main story is divided and separated, I would say, by the episodic stories that focus on the individual judges and the games in between those, and I really like that. In general, I just like psychological stories and stories that focus on characters because when I go into a show, my mindset is that I'm either looking for great characters with good story or great story with good characters, and I think that Prey delivers both great characters and great story. I found myself liking the episodic episodes more than the main story episodes. Not because they were better, it's just I just was more interested in the psychology of the character or the mystery of wondering what what happened to them and why are they here, how did they die, and how does this relate, how do they relate to each other, or so on and so on. If I had to list it, I would say that my favorite episodes were 4, 8, 9, 11, and 12. I want to talk a little bit about them, so I will. Let's start with episode 4. Episode 4 stars like the other three have. Two people come in, a woman and a man, and as we go, as the more we go along, we slowly learn about them like we've been doing up to this point in the show. The girl, the woman, is revealed that she's an actor or like a reality TV actor or something, and she tells that to the guy who's a neat, he's like a nerd, something 20-year-old or whatever, and she says to go along with it because that's what she thinks they are in. And Decca makes them play a game, and the game has to do with an arcade. And since the guy is a neat, right, he's like a nerd, he knows how to play it and he's good at it, and she's losing. And here we see the cracks, and we see that darkness come out, that darkness that Decca always looks for. Of course, she's a selfish person, so she asks the guy to lose to her because to make it a good show. But in reality, you can just tell she just wants the spotlight. And the way that Decum makes this environment even more hostile by rigging the game, and that I really like that because he justifies it by saying we need to bring out the darkness, but Chiyuki doesn't think that's the case. I like their little conflict that they had there, but regardless, the guy starts winning, and near the end, right, they're getting flashes of their life, and it's coming back to them. She goes crazy and slams his head inside the arcade or in the arcade screen, and she just keeps slamming him and slamming him. She gave into the darkness, but she gave into it so quickly. And I would say that darkness was always there. I wouldn't say that it was created for her in particular. I don't think she was definitely kind of tricked into it. Um, but it was there. It something that she has in her, and we can see that even in the flashbacks to her, in the way that she died, that she was killed, because she's a selfish person. She's a bitch, for the lack of other words to describe her. It's revealed to them that they're dead, and or they realize it, and their reactions is great. And this is where the best part of the episode happens, I think. She runs towards Decum, right? She doesn't believe this. She's crying and she's yelling at him. And Decum stops her using his string ability, and she starts yelling at him like, "What gives you the right to judge me? Who are you to judge me, right? You tricked me into doing that. You tricked me. That's not me or whatever." and she begins to cry, and we start to see her life, more of her life. She used to get beaten, and she ended up with kids, and she says that all she wanted is for them to be happy, and she finally got a chance to make them happy, and she's crying, and she wants to go back. This is the point where the guy also starts crying, because he's thinking back on how he died. He killed himself, and it shows us the scene when he kills himself. Previously we've seen it, and his eyes looked lifeless when he did it, and it was because of depression, right? But he right there, he starts crying, and he's saying, why did I do it, right? Why did I do it? And he thinks back on his stepmom, and his stepmom wanted him to call him mom. And he's crying, and Declan walks up to them. When he walks up to her, she says that she'll do anything. She just wants to go back to her children, that she wants to go back. But there's nothing Declan can do but release her, and he hugs her. She starts struggling, and she's crying, but she gives in, and she starts crying even harder. The guy also comes in near, and he hugs two of them, and he says, "You did the best you could," or you did your best. And it was such a powerful scene. I think this is the point where I fell in love with the show, and this is the point where I thought the show was great. The episodes before were also great, but this was great in a different way. It hit me. It tugged at my heartstrings, and I think it worked. It's revealed that she wasn't going to be reincarnated, and she's going to the void, and the guy is. He says he does his trademark, when he's like, I hope your journey goes well, or whatever. And it's a sad ending, and I think she definitely deserved it, but no one truly deserves that fate. I think it was a tragic one, and it really liked how conflicted I felt by the end of it. And that's something that the show really did well, how conflicted I felt a lot of the times when it asked the questions, right? Hard questions that they need to be answered, and the decisions that you don't always agree with. Now, let's skip to episode 8 and 9. Episode 8 and 9 are the last out of the episodic episodes, and it's a two-parter dealing with killers. So I'm gonna call it two killers, since they're both killers. I'm gonna call it Boy and Detective. So, wow, this was one hell of a two episodes, because when they first showed up, right, and they said that there's a killer, and they don't tell us who the killer is. I thought, as soon as I found out the old man was a detective, I was like, oh, I see what they're doing. A detective and a killer, let's see that clash in morals, that justice versus immorality or evil. But no, that's not what they went, and it completely surprised me, because the detective ended up being even worse, because he's also a killer. Two of them are killers, and I liked the connection they had with each other. Two of them did it for revenge. One for his sister, the other one for his wife. That's what the detective did it for. The detective's view of justice changed. He needs to punish them. He doesn't need to lock them up. He needs to punish them, and that's how he views it now. And to see that was so wow, because I did not expect it. And the guy, the boy, he looked so innocent, but I suspected it was him. And when he revealed it, I was like, oh yes. But to see two of their interaction and that bondage that they have with each other, because they both wanted revenge, and they both got it. Even though the kid was still like, I'm not done yet, and the detective was also said that his job isn't complete yet. They're playing some kind of game that has to do with their organs, right? Like they always do. When they score, they feel the pain there, or whatever. That doesn't really matter. It's all about the psychology here. And we see in the past that it was connected, because there was another guy that the kid wanted to get revenge on, the guy that just stared at his sister getting beaten and molested, or whatever, getting assaulted. And it's revealed that it was a detective who was staring. And when he confronts him about it, he's like, why didn't you stop it? He says, because if I stopped it, I wouldn't have a reason to justify me killing them. Because his whole justification is that he needs to be the judge, and they need to do crime, and if they didn't do this, they wouldn't have done the crime, so he wouldn't be able to judge them, and they would have just done it with someone else. That was his justification, and I loved that conflicting justification with him and the kid. Of course, the kid lashes out at him and tries to hurt him. Declan stops him, of course, and the guy asks him, is there a way for me to get my revenge? And Declan offers a solution. They can't die, but they can feel pain. So he gives them the pieces that are connected to the organ, all of them, and he stacks it up. The kid now has a knife, and Deckham ties up the detective, and he has a choice. He can stab right through it and make the detective feel all the pain, or he cannot. At this point, Hiyuki pleads with the kid, and she's like, "Don't do it, please. It's not worth it. This is not what you have to do. This is what they want. This is what he wants you to do." And referring to Deckham, right? He's looking for the darkness within. But the detective disagrees. The detective's like, "No, take your vengeance. Finish your vengeance. Do it and satisfy yourself. Get that feeling." And it's heartbreaking because the kid does it. He breaks through all the plates, and the killer is feeling pain, and the music is swelling, right? The music is there, and I'm feeling every moment of it. And the killer, the detective, he's smiling. He loved that he gave in. And it was such a great scene, such a powerful scene. This might have been my favorite episode, but I can't say for sure because I love so many of these episodes. But yeah, there's a few things I want to talk about. There's episode 11 and 12 where the backstory is revealed, and I'll talk about it more later on about the backstory, right? But for right now, I want to talk about the ending and the last judge, the one that Deckham did for Chiyuki, right? Deckham found a way to judge her by telling her, "You can come back to life, but you will kill someone else." And that choice, that selfish choice versus selfless choice, and her ultimately deciding not to do it because it was painful for her not to decide not to do it. But her justification was that someone out there is special to someone else, and I'll just be taking it away. I will give the feeling that my mom is feeling to someone else, and I don't want that. That was the perfect way to judge because it was a perfect solution, and Deckham is happy because she passed, right? But he also feels a lot of pain, and he starts crying, and he starts apologizing. He starts saying that it hurt him to see her in pain, but that's the only way he could do it. That's the only way he could judge her accurately. And it's such a powerful scene. These two characters really worked well together, and the impact of the ending really hit because of them. When they went their separate ways, Deckham now learning and how to judge differently and doing things differently because of her. And her crying, and it was such a powerful scene when they departed. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. I didn't cry, but it hit me. It definitely did hit me, and I felt it. And there's no greater thing than feeling what the author wants you to feel, right, when they're writing it. Because I'm sure that's what they want. Regardless. Let's move on to characters. Now, there's a lot of characters in this show, but in particular, I want to talk about four. For no other reason, because I like them, and if I talked about all the characters here that intrigued me, we would be here for days because every game had like new characters, and I want to talk about those, but not enough. Not enough to like include their whole section, but they're all good. I'll just say that. Regardless, let's start with Nona. I freaking love Lona. I loved her presence, her authority that she had, and I liked her mindset. The fact that she knew that the way they were judging was bad, the way they were judging was flawed, and she wanted it to change, and which is why she made Deckham, right, as an experiment, an arbiter with human emotions. She thought that is crucial for the judging process. And overall, she was just such a good character. What more can I say? Regardless, moving on to Ginty. Now, the reason why I like Ginty is because he's the other arbiter that we saw. And he's so different than Deckham. He has a beef with Deckham, and the reason is because they're so different, right? They have such a different mindset. But this just shows how some of the other arbiters act, right? He doesn't really seem to be happy to be an arbiter, but he does it because it's what he has to do, right? So he does it. I really liked the way he judged in his episode. Mayo, I think, was the girl, because he doesn't care. He's finding enjoyment in this, and he finds the human emotions stupid. Most of their choices stupid. The fact that they try to find meaning in life. I also really liked this bar. It was a nice setting. But what I want to mention is that it was nice to see how he also has figurines to remember his guests, just like Deckham has his mannequins or whatever hobby that Deckham had. His weird hobby. But still, though, the main reason why I really liked him is because of how different he was than Deckham. And I also want to talk about the scene where he tricked Mayo into going into the void. it was heartbreaking, and that scene was so beautiful, the way it was handled when she was in there, and how their two souls just went down. But the fact that she tricked him, I didn't hate him for it, because that's just how he is, and I can't change that. No one can change that, and he just can't. We just can't relate to it, and he made his choice, and it showed how flawed the system is. Because I don't think she deserved to go to the void. I think she deserved to go to get reincarnated, but for some reason she didn't, and we don't need to know the reason. We just know that whatever decision he did, it was wrong, and we just felt it, right? We felt how wrong it felt. And I believe that it was a great scene, because I hated it. I hated it, but I couldn't hate him, and I loved how much I hated it then. If that makes sense. Regardless, let's move on. Let's talk about Decim. He was my second favorite character, and his change, his arc of going from emotionalist from the beginning to changing the way he judged, and being more considerate of human emotions was great. And of course, Chiyuki being the main reason why it happened. But before we get to her, because she was my favorite character, I want to talk about him. It was really nice to see his change, and I liked how he was a shell, right, of no emotions, but every once in a while you would see that crack in it, and you would see his soft side. You would see why he, like, his human side, because he does have human emotions, and all of those scenes wherever he did break down, or he did like crack. It was great, and his arc was just great to watch, and he was one of the bigger reasons why the ending works. Him and Chiyuki were both the reasons, and they were both great main characters. On that note, let's move on to Chiyuki. She was my favorite character because of the human element that she brought into it. She was that character that asked the questions like, should non-humans be judging humans? Or are you creating the darkness? Or are you just bringing it out? Which one is it? Because to her, it looked like they were just creating the darkness. They weren't just bringing it out, right? I liked every time she fought against Decim for his choices, or just the way that he always have done things and she just disagreed with it. I liked her human element, and she was one of the biggest reasons why he changed. Also, when her backstory was revealed, that was really nice. I really did like it, with her killing herself and the whole ballet thing. It was such a nice thing, and I loved her character. What can I say? Okay, that's all I have to say for characters, so I'll move on to animation. So since Madhouse did the animation, it's no surprise that it looks great. I want to mention the shading, or the colors used in this show, because there's a lot of dark colors, and the shading gives off like a dreamlike feeling, and I think it works perfectly for the show. I also really like the character designs. Okay, we move on to others. I have a few things I want to say in others. But let's begin with the dub. I think the show has a really good dub, an English dub. Usually when I watch a show, I watch the English dub version, mostly because, it's my language, English, and that's how I prefer to watch things. But I know that most of the times the English dubs aren't really that good. If they're good, I'll watch them, right? If they're bad, then I'll switch over to subs. And I always revisit the show in subs anyways. And I just want to start giving credit in my videos whenever I think a dub is really good, because there are some really good dub voice actors out there, and I think that Death Parade is one of those animes that has a good dub, and especially the voice actor for Decim, I think, really fit. But yeah, the other thing I want to talk about is the setting and world building. I feel like the show only shows a little bit of the setting, and I feel like we only scratch the surface. If we ever get a sequel, I would love to see more of the world, and I love that feeling. The feeling of you've barely seen anything, right? And what we did see was really great stuff. So if we could, I would love to get more of that. I also want to talk about the world building. I think the show handles world building perfectly, because it doesn't explain everything. It explains some things, and it lets you figure out other things by just being there, like seeing it multiple times and you putting it together. And there's some things that just leaves to your imagination, like, where did God go? Doesn't matter, you decide, right? And I love that, because I think this is the best type of world building, because in when they explain everything, it just takes away that thing, you know. Exposition scenes are just never really the best thing. One of the reason why I'm not really a big fan of Log Horizon, even though everybody like says, "Oh, that's such a great isekai," is because I believe that it doesn't handle its world building as good as everybody says it does. Because to me, when I was watching it, it just felt like exposition dumps, exposition dumps. There's literally a whole episode that it was just exposition, and I did not like that. I think you should be clever when it comes to world building, and I think Death Parade really handles it well. Lastly, I want to mention the OP. I think it has a really good OP. Not as in the song by itself, but like everything. Because the song isn't good enough that I want to download it. But the song with the visuals and the subtle foreshadowing that it has, I think it just amounts to a great OP. I didn't skip it once. But it was such a different tone than what the show actually is. See, it's such a contrast, but it really works. It blends well together for some reason. And yeah, I think I'll conclude now. Death Parade is a good show, and it's not one of my favorites, but it's up there as a top tier anime. I think that Death Parade was something that was worth watching, especially because it was a recommendation from someone who just got into anime. So I wasn't really sure if they had good taste or not, but I'm glad I decided to watch it because it was a great experience, and the person has some good taste in anime, I can say. But with all that said, this will be the end of the video. From now on, I think I'll just be posting as soon as I finish working on a video. It usually takes me like 3 days if I take it slowly. But yeah, doesn't matter. I have a lot of videos planned and I'm very excited to make them, and hopefully my audience will grow. But with all that said, please subscribe and leave a comment or something. And yeah, goodbye. Have a nice day.